writer, columnist, and author Steve Young joins us to talk about his book, Great Failures of the Extremely Successful. Steve, what do you mean when you say that Webster's needs to redefine the F word?
Well, the F word we're talking about, of course, is the other one, the failure word. Okay. And that's because I think the word failure has gotten a bad rap. Usually, it's a negative thing. But the fact is, if you really look at it, failure is where we start to learn. And everybody, especially kids, takes a look at failure or mistakes or adversity and gets so scared of it that they're almost afraid to risk. If they would take a look at the word failure as a stepping stone to success, in other words, you made a mistake, but now what can we learn from this? Then all of a sudden it's very positive and it becomes something that you don't have to be afraid of, and in fact something that you're willing to keep trying and trying because you know in the long run you're going to gain from it.
Whose story from the book did you find most inspiring?
The first person I wanted to call when I knew I was going to do this type of book was a fellow named Jim Marshall. He was a Hall of Fame lineman for the Minnesota Vikings, pro football player. And I had seen him over and over and over on a replay run the wrong way for a touchdown and score for the other team. And I thought, how humiliating. And even to this day, I mean, years later, they're still playing it over. How do you deal with something like that? And I talked to him about that, and he said it was humiliating. And in fact, he was just a kid. What he did is he picked up the ball, and he saw the goal line, and it was clear to get to the, and a lineman never gets to score. So it was only a few yards away. He started taking off, and all of a sudden, he realized that nobody was in front of him. And he ended up scoring. The half was over, and the defensive lineman said, "Thank you." And he just realized then that he had scored for the other team. He went into the locker room. He didn't want to come out. He didn't want to talk to anybody, etc. And he remembered something his father said, which was, when you're given something, make the best of it. Anything, make the best of it. He realized that he had to go out there, and what he did is he played the best half of his life. He still didn't want to talk about it. The press wanted to talk about it afterwards, that scoring for the other team. It rarely happens. And he ended up talking about it, even though he didn't want to, and telling how he felt. Well, he got thousands of letters from people who were talking about, geez, I've been hiding this secret, I've been shamed all my life, etc., etc. And they came out of the woodwork and thanked him. It led him to a life of benevolence, where he worked for a number of Minneapolis funding, humanitarian type of operations for kids. He has helped tens of thousands of people over the years. That's the direction he went because of that moment of humiliation. He wouldn't have gone in that area, had no idea where he was going to go. So out of this, out of something that was a pain in his heart, what happened was probably, you won't ask for it, but the best thing that could have happened to him.
You've got actors, and you've got writers, and you've got pro athletes in this book. What other types of people?
Scientists, entertainers, Nobel Prize winners, Erin Brockovich, Jane Goodall, very high-profile people, and people who had the guts to tell me stories that they hadn't even told to other people yet about what it was in their life. And they could have been kids, they could have been adults when it happened, it could have been about careers, it could have been about relationships, deaths. Loss of Teddy Pendergrass became a quadriplegic. He said, becoming a quadriplegic saved my life. I wouldn't have ever asked for it, and I wish I could have learned it another way, but this is how I had to learn it, and it saved my life. And he's not that necessarily he would want to be this way, but he realized the hand he was given, and he has used that to become a better person and to live his life as happy as possible. It can work for diseases, it can work for just school, it can work for any business, anything you're trying. But the idea, when I wrote Great Failures, the point was to say, how can you take the most traumatic moment in your life that would seem to be so negative, and with that, use it as a stepping stone to success?
Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. If you're tired of fighting what life sometimes serves up and would like to find out how you can change it all for the best, pick up Great Failures of the Extremely Successful. I hear you handed out books to Wall Street traders and brokers. What was that all about?
I said they've got to look at things a different way because the market was plummeting. That day I went out and handed Great Failures of the Extremely Successful to every stockbroker that walked in, including Richard Grasso, who was the head of the stock market at that time. That day, the stock market went up over 240 points, wow, which was the largest move in at least 15 years on the stock market. Was it my fault? Was it Great Failures, the result of that? Yeah, it was. It was because of me handing out the book.